and Craig Smoke.
I mentioned the premium section of Sic'Em365.com, which is really how it all started with Sic'Em365.com and the umbrella. But you can look in there and you might see something that Grayson's written, or something Colt's written, or something Craig's written, or Ashley Hodge, or Kendall Cow, and Travis Reeder, who covers Baylor football among many things, and he joins us now, football analyst on Sic'Em 365 Radio. Game Saturday. Travis, let's start. You, I know, wrote an article recently about the quarterback room, about Gerry Bohanon's upside, and really not even that, but how much he could even improve even more as the alpha dog. There is obviously competition with what they had at the end of last year, but you are sold that it's Gerry's room and Gerry's room only, correct?
I mean, more or less, I think that's fair to say. And I think that what's been difficult about the conversation this offseason is that people think that if you're, pro Gerry or pro Chapin, it means you're anti the other guy.
Yeah.
I think it's very clear that, Blake Chapin's going to be a really, really good college quarterback. And it very well might be this fall. I just think that Gerry showed us so much last year and has given us really no reason to suspect that he's a guy that's going to do anything but just kind of continue to improve. I mean, Smokey, y'all might remember from when he initially signed. I mean, he was doing the deal where he was like driving 30 minutes every day before school at like 5 a.m. to go work out. Even when Charlie Brewer was the starter, Matt Rule was openly and unprompted saying that Gerry was the hardest working player on the team. And so I just think going into year 2 with Grimes and given everything Gerry showed us in his first year, there's no reason to suspect that Gary's going to do anything but just continue to improve and continue to get better.
And Travis, where would you like to see those improvements? Obviously he was effective running the ball, and we don't really know when maybe his health got dinged a little bit, but, the deep ball, I guess, could be a little bit more consistent. What sort of areas do you see as if he makes those jumps, then he makes a big jump as a player?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a couple things. Overall, it's just really getting more comfortable in the system, feeling more like a freewheeling player. I think what Gary's really elite at, honestly, and why he was such a good player as a first-year starter was that he very clearly was able to take the coaching that Jeff Grimes and Sean Bell were giving him on the offensive side, and he just executed the game plan. Whatever they told him to do, he would do. But even though he's such a good runner on called running plays, I think one of his weaknesses is that he actually tries to stick in the pocket for too long. After a couple of years of Charlie Brewer where he was constantly escaping, I kind of prefer the quarterback to try and stick in the pocket too long. But I think that's one area where as he gets more comfortable, he'll get a better feel for when to escape and make things happen as opposed to sticking back in the pocket. And the other aspect of that is just, as he develops a more comfortable grasp in the offense, I think that'll allow them to be a little bit more flexible in their play calling as far as opening up the passing game a little bit more and not having to stick to, I think last year if they were getting 3rd and 7, how many different play calls did they have they feel comfortable with, right? I think they want to expand on that this year. That way defenses can't hone in on whatever they've learned and seen previously.
Will their receivers allow them to make the quarterback comfortable? Because we're talking about less than 10 receptions coming back.
Well, when you put it that way, the answer is no. They will not. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's a real big thing. I mean, receiver is all about comfort level. It's all about practice reps. It's all about developing that rapport with the quarterback. And that's why I think as important as it is to kind of let this competition breed and let the competition create whoever the best receiver in the room is. I think that by fall camp, when you get to a week or two before the season, they really need to settle on who their top 4 or 5 guys are. That way the quarterbacks can really develop as much of a rapport as possible with those guys. Because, we saw it last year with Gerry and Taekwon. So many of those passes to Taekwon where he was making great catches, tough catches over the middle, were all about the kind of small little intricacies where you could tell that Gerry had a feel for where Taekwon was going to be. So, yeah, that's a big concern. And I just hope that, over the summer they spent a lot of time practicing because that's where all those reps matter.
So, last year you look at it, they still had a little bit of uneasiness at quarterback because they weren't sure because of the transition. Wide receiver had depth. At least we thought we knew who they were, and obviously they lost the transfer to Colorado in Snead. The running back room was good. But then the offensive line was a mess. And now you have the offensive line is as good as it's been and maybe forever. And then the other guys disappear. And then your quarterback room is solid. How much having the offensive line depth and who they have back and also the experience help a little bit along the way until they kind of find their mojo?
Oh, definitely. I mean, to me, that's what I love about college football. And I think what separates it from the pro game, and this goes for college basketball as well, is the idea that, players are on 3 to 5 year cycles. And so it's extremely rare for teams to kind of be awesome at every position unit on the field. It's just the luck of the draw, right? You're never having all your kind of cards fall in the line there. It's just really difficult to do. And so that's just kind of the nature of the beast. Baylor gets to be really, really good on both lines, but then they're missing some players from the secondary and the skill positions on offense that they're going to have to make up for. So like you said, they're going to lean on that O-line. They have 3 or 4 of the better O linemen in the conference all in that starting unit, which is incredible. And so I think, whoever ends up getting the lion's share that carries at running back is going to be successful. And really the running game, and with Gary's element of being able to call design runs, I think that's what's really going to help in the passing game as well, to kind of really hone in and focus on those couple of concepts that's going to allow them to be successful. Starts all up front. Really great to have all those guys back.
Travis, what do you think of Baylor's 2 defensive additions through the transfer portal? Jackson Player obviously arrived early enough to where he's been able to go through spring drills. He's been working at nose as a kind of a 1-2 punch with Apu, but also a little bit of defensive end. As Randall mentioned, they can move him around. And then Josh White, who's still in that, clearinghouse process. We haven't been able to ask Miranda about him, but, Josh White and Jackson Player, how does that amp up the defense for 2022?
Pretty incredible. I didn't really think Baylor needed another defensive lineman, but when you can get a guy as good as Player, you take him. It's pretty incredible that I think Jackson Player was kind of resoundingly on a lot of All-American lists, even if it was down there like 3rd and 4th team or whatever. But he's, you've got a borderline All-American level player who's now running with the twos behind Hapuaika. What an embarrassment of riches that is. He's just a really dynamic player. I think he's going to kind of force his way into the field. He's smaller, and no offense, Jackson, if you're listening, but it's kind of easy to see why I didn't get a ton of offers out of high school, because he has like one of the worst looking bodies you'll ever see for a defensive lineman. But he just knows how to make plays, and in the trenches, it's all about how to play with your hands. And he just gets big O linemen off him. When you watch him against Ohio State, Ohio State has the dream build offensive lineman, right? And he was just whipping them up. So I think he's going to make a big impact. Josh White's been discussed a lot on the site. He's the inside linebacker who's most likely going to replace Terrell Bernard. He doesn't have the benefit of being here this spring, but I think he's probably easily the most prototypically athletic and all-around good linebacker that Baylor has signed in a long time. Just speed for days, physical, great build. I think he's probably the favorite to replace Terrell Bernard at this point. His weakness is just going to be the fact that he only has fall camp to do it.
Who will be the most difficult player on the defense that's going to get drafted this weekend to replace?
I think we talked about this last time some, Terrell Bernard versus Jalen Petrie. JT Woods in there too. I think like we talked about last time, I think, Terrell Bernard is just playing inside linebacker is really hard at the college level. It's kind of like receiver where it just requires so many reps that I think whoever Baylor puts in there, there's just basically no shot that they're going to be as good as Terrell was last year. And that's understandable. Terrell was a 4-year player. He developed all those skills and instincts over a 4-year period. I think watching the safety position for who's replacing JT is going to be really interesting, because I don't think there's really a clear leader there. They have maybe 3 to 4, maybe even 5 guys they're looking at that position. None of them are probably going to be as good as JT was last year for similar reasons to Terrell. But defense is all about not having a weak link, right? You can have a dominant defensive line, but if they can just kind of line up and immediately throw to somebody that they know they can dominate, it's not going to work out for you. So I think that's kind of the big thing for Baylor's defense this offseason is, honing what they do well, but also making sure that they pick some guys that are going to allow them to not have any leaky holes on their ship.
Travis Reeder, Sic'Em365.com football analyst. I said the draft this weekend. I'm all out of whack. It's, of course, a week from this weekend. Craig?
Yeah, we got a little bit more to wait. So, Travis, it's a spring game. I mean, it's not truly real football. But, is there a player or is there a particular position that you are going to maybe have more of an emphasis or a focus on watching?
Yeah, I mean, I think watching the running backs is going to be important. Last year in the spring, that was only I think Abram only practiced at running back like the last week or two of spring ball last year. And they had some open scrimmages last year. We were able to see it. It was kind of very clear in the first scrimmage or two that they didn't really have an idea of what they were going to do at that position. And then they moved Abram there. And the spring game, he looked awesome. I mean, just you could kind of see everything we ended up seeing in the season. We were able to kind of see flashes of that in the spring game. So I want to see a back or two, just, whether it's Squirrel looking dynamic or Tay punishing and breaking free. Like you said, it's a spring game. You don't want to take too much from things, but I think you can tell from the way guys are playing and the way they're slided in the offense. It gives you a flash of what they're capable of. So that back, that's going to be important. And I think defensively, kind of like what I was just mentioning at safety, I want to see if they have kind of a clear picture of what they're doing in the defensive backfield. Because like I said, they have so many different options. I think it's just going to be a matter of who looks comfortable back there? Where are they playing Christian Morgan? Does he look comfortable? Because you just don't want, it's fun to see big plays on offense, but in a spring game or anytime you're watching your own team, you always want to see big plays because the offense made a big play, not because the defense busted something open. So I want to see that kind of confidence on the back end from Baylor too.
Travis, thank you very much for the insight, the stories on Sic'Em365.com in the premium section as well. And the time here today is the Baylor spring game coming up around noon or so on Saturday. Yeah,
it's going to be fun to see, just them out there and get to see guys actually. Because, when we go out there now, we get 15, 20 minutes. And, you can see some individual drills and positional coaching, and you see a lot of stretching, see a lot of field goal kicking and things like that. But, haven't really been able to sit back and I haven't been able to go to all of them either. But really sit and just watch a series and then, a response and back and forth. And so, I'm looking forward to seeing, Gerry running the offense and then Blake running the offense and then, Kyron Drones as well. I mean, we kind of forget that he's in the mix sometimes because he's just, not one of those automatic top two guys, but he's young and developing. So look forward to seeing him play more than he has in quite some time.
Yeah, that, and then you have C.J. Rogers, the walk-on, and you think you need to kind of watch them because we don't know what happens once a decision's made on who the quarterback's going to be, because all of a sudden that room should stay, you hope, with 4 people, but it could change. So that's